When I think about companies that are building, say, deep research agents or building with AI search, it's pretty industry agnostic, which is very good for us. And so pretty much any industry can leverage from plugging AI search into their agentic systems. Context is just standard for the industry. And so, as I said before, whether it's a sales agent or a PR agent that has notice of the latest news or a coding agent with the latest documentation, it really is very agnostic. That being said, one of the big use cases that we see come up is I am Sofia Guzowski. I'm originally from Costa Rica. I know my last name doesn't make it seem that way, but I've been in New York for the past 7 years, studying both at Columbia and working in tech. I started my career at Microsoft doing AI partnerships, and now I lead partnerships and community efforts at Tavily, which is an early stage startup based in New York.
Awesome. And we get to know each other because we've done a few hackathons here in Canada, and you guys have been really one of the biggest supporters and sponsors in the past. So I'm really excited to have you on the pod today. I personally have used Havili many times, both for personal projects at the beginning and then I guess like in professional settings. So I've always been curious about like how search for agents is like a use case that like became quite prominent over the last year or the year before that.
Sure, and so maybe I'll start with a quick definition for people who are not familiar with Tavily. We are the web infrastructure layer for AI agents. We have four main endpoints, and we just released a deep research agent, which I'll talk a little bit more later. We're very proud of it. We're trying to bridge the gap between the web and agents. The reason why this is so important is because when LLMs started, like we got into this LLM boom, results were very stale. For example, you would ask ChatGPT about the weather and it would say, sorry, like this is something that I don't have access to, or you would ask it about some recent event. It just didn't have a way to answer this from its training data. And so we moved on to a part of the process with RAG, where you would feed information into your systems. And then we got to agents, where context is just really important. Imagine like you have a sales agent that doesn't have knowledge of a competitor's launch, right? Or you're launching a coding agent that doesn't have access to the recent documentation. And so, without context, agents were just hallucinating, they were stale, and they weren't up to date with the recent news. And so, search just became an essential component in anybody building an agent because it needs that context in order to be aware of the systems that it's interacting with. Something I'll also say, and our CEO, Rotem Weiss, talks about this a lot, is that the web was built for humans, right? It has ads, the way it shows you links, and now we have agents that are searching the web and they're optimizing for the best responses. And so the web needs to adapt to the way that agents are searching the web. And so it's just become an area of a lot of innovation, and we're very excited to be one of the strong innovators in this space.
History lesson about how Rotem started Tavili. I know he was at Columbia and he was building like a open source project called GPT Researcher.
Right.
And I actually tried it like 2 years ago, and I was like, huh, this is like predating like Perplexity. I think like Perplexity wasn't even that popular at the time. So tell us more.
Yeah, so Rotem was one of the co-creators of this open source project called GPT Researcher. When he launched on GitHub, it got over 20,000 stars. And this was kind of like a never done before research agent, and it was open source. And this really showed the need for agents that could kind of like navigate the web, explore and use that real-time data in order to plug it into their systems. And so that was one of the feeders and one of the verifications of the demand for this type of product. And so it was very important in the development of Tavili.
What kind of product usually needs to leverage AI search? Because I know, we all started with the personal assistant kind of ChatGPT style, and then there's like whole kinds of like different types of agents now. Like there are agents that run in the backgrounds, or agents that do deep research, and like different kinds of agents. So, like what kind of agents needs web search the most?
When I think about companies that are building, say, deep research agents or building with AI search, it's pretty industry agnostic, which is very good for us. And so pretty much any industry can leverage from plugging AI search into their agentic systems. Context is just standard for the industry. And so, as I said before, whether it's a sales agent or a PR agent that has notice of the latest news or a coding agent with the latest documentation, it really is very agnostic. That being said, one of the big use cases that we see come up is research, right? You saw we released a deep research agent, and so this is one of the use cases that we see the most. It's one of those tasks that you can't get an answer in a couple seconds. You have to be a little bit patient and give it maybe 2 to 3 minutes to come up with a response. And so it plans a strategy into how it will research, sort of like a human researcher would do, like an analyst. And so it's replacing or aiding, I would say, a little bit of that process. Some examples are like market research, competitive intel. These are like very big use cases. It's also used a lot in CRM for like data enrichment. And so if you have a list of, say, prospects and you want to find out about where they work, get their LinkedIn, get some background from the internet, it's very good at data enrichment. And this is also good across industries. And then I would also say that we see a lot of usage in coding platforms. For example, JetBrains, big customer of Tavily, we just released a case study. It's a great way to make sure that your coding agent stays reliant and relevant by accessing the latest documentation. And so some of these are the main use cases we see, but I would say research across industries is definitely what stands out.
At HI Ventures, we're hoping to automate the entire organization, and part of that is automating the go-to-market kind of stack. So we have Notion, but then now I'm thinking about building a system where whenever somebody add like a person to the CRM, it
Hmm.
kicks off like an agent to do like some sort of web search, deep research on that particular profile based on the user's name, the person's name, company, maybe some contact information to get as much information as possible.
Love it.
Um, yeah, and I learned this from Langchain team actually because they have like a similar setup in I think Airtable. But
Where did you
when
learn? I'm curious. Like, did anybody from the team teach you, or where are you
yeah,
building your agent?
yeah, so I don't know at this point people know this, but Langchain internally they have like a job board for like all the jobs that they want to automate with AI. Like there's like different functions in different departments and they want to build an agent to like replace that function. And they have this thing where when people like do certain things that activates them in the CRM, like there's actually like an Airtable kind of like agent that goes off and find out who they are and then
Cool.
send the right information or the right message to the right team member, go to market team member. So I've been like fascinated with that use case. So I'm trying to like replicate that on our own. But the thing that I run into usually is like, okay, web search is great, but then when I need to like get the person's contact info or
Hmm.
their LinkedIn info, that's when it gets really tricky. So, do you guys have anything to do with like that kind of side of data, or it's like mostly like web search, kind of general public information?
We have four endpoints: search, which is one of our main used endpoints, but then we also have extract, crawl, and map, which really allows you to scrape this type of information from the web. Tabili won't go beyond anything that has a paywall. And so we're dealing with public information, staying super legal. And so if there's information that's behind a paywall, we won't be able to access at the moment.
From your experience, like what have been like the most successful uses of like AI search? Because you mentioned that there are use cases that I didn't even think about, like code for JetBrains, or from my perspective, mostly like research. But then what's like has been like the most successful implementation of AI search that you've seen so far?
Interesting. So I think one of the use cases that I really love is just like optimizing for market research. There's a lot of day traders, hedge funds, they really care about all the market movements, and tracking the different stocks is just a lot of work, right? My dad is a day trader himself, and he's just always stuck to CNBC watching the news, and if he stops watching for 1 second, he might miss something and that changes the price of the stock. And so something that Tabili does very well is just bring you real-time data at the moment that you need it. And so I see a lot of really interesting use cases for finance, being able to build stock trackers, market research. This is actually a use case that we have on our website, but I think it's extremely relevant for an industry that is moving so fast.
So talk to me about the recent deep research API endpoint that you guys launched.
I will give our engineering team complete kudos for this. Like, they are absolute genius. And just so everybody knows who's listening, this is a huge announcement and a huge accomplishment of the team. We recently topped the deep research benchmark on Hugging Face for the best performance on a deep research endpoint. It's competing over like Anthropic, OpenAI. And Tabili's at the top, and so we're very, very proud of that. And the basis of this was context engineering. Something that our engineers realized is that agents try to kind of like flood their context windows with a lot of noise. They get in all that data and they try to process it, but this makes the agent slower. It's more expensive and just like it has a lot of noise to deal with, and so it starts drowning, which ultimately reduces its performance. And so this is a term that our engineers shared, and they use something called distilled reflections, which is pretty much the method in which the agent interacts with the different sources online. They will take a source, they will pull one or two main insights that it needs, and it does this like intelligent re-ranking, which is a very big part of our product. It understands what it has already seen, and then it just discards the rest. And so it's keeping notes and snippets of what it sees rather than just keeping track of the entire internet. And this just meant that token usage was cut by, I think it was 66%, and it's still having the top performance. And so a lot of it was due to context engineering and this technique to make sure that we're only dealing with the most relevant AI snippets to avoid drowning the agent.
Nice. I think that sounds very in line with like how coding agents work, where it's like we're using Claude Code or Codex. You can do like sub agents where the sub agents manages its own context, and then the main agent doesn't get polluted by the little
Correct.
steps the sub agents have to go out and do stuff. And I would imagine you would spin up like multiple in parallels because this is like almost like a read task where it's go out and do research, and you can read as much as you can, like 10 sub agents at a time. That's what I imagine you would do. But then, okay, so I'm thinking about this with you guys and the other AI research labs.
Right.
So OpenAI, I think they either fine tune or pre train a model specifically for deep research. I think it's O3 deep research and O4 mini deep research. And then there's like this where it's like you guys are building agent harness to do deep research.
Right.
So what's the difference and why decide to do that instead of training a model? And also, how did you guys like top the benchmark for deep research on Hugging Face? What was the
Yes.
secret sauce?
What is the secret sauce? Well, the secret sauce is context engineering and really treating the agent like a human researcher, teaching it how to research like a human analyst, right? And how it digests the different sources and how it keeps notes. And so there's a full blog, and I will link it here so that everybody can read. But the secret sauce really is that context engineering and that focus on making sure that the right sources are coming into the context window at the right times, and using that intelligent re-ranking system to get those snippets at the right time. Make sure that the agent only has the information that it's relevant for the task at hand. We are very much in the infrastructure business. And so as you see with our API, like a lot of people, I guess like a question that comes up is like, why wouldn't I use ChatGPT with web search? But the reason is web search is part of like a, a product, right, in OpenAI as it exists now, whereas with Tavily, it's an infrastructure component that you can plug in with whatever model you use, whatever agent building platform that you're using, and then you have all the parameters to personalize, right, the experience. And so it's an infrastructure component. It gives you a lot more flexibility, and we can regulate also privacy, very, very big on enterprise security. And so it gives you a lot more flexibility to build wherever you're building and with whatever you're building, whereas OpenAI with web search, for example, is more of like a complete consumer application. Similarly, with the research agent, we're a lot about giving our end user that flexibility to customize. And so it has all the different parameters. But the research agent is kind of different than our other endpoints, and that's because it's a standalone solution. And so you can actually just go and implement that into your system, which means that we're reducing engineering time by a lot, right? Because you don't have to have any sort of complicated system to go and implement. You can just see the immediate time to value by using the deep research agent. A lot of enterprises, like Fortune 500 companies, really care about these like deep security layers that Tavily enables. And so they like with working with this flexibility with the current systems that they have. And I know this is something that our forward deployed engineers work with a lot. They really just help take Tavily, whether that be like our API or our research agent that is just getting released, and just like really plug it into their systems. And so this is something that they do all day, every day, and it's something that also differentiates us as well in the way that we provide service.
Speaking of for deploy, so I know you guys have a suite of API products that are self-serve. Like I can just go on there, I get like 1,000 tokens for free, and I can just run it. That's how I found out about Tavily. But there's like an emerging trend in AI, like in our industry, where it's like the companies are hiring for deploy engineers, which are engineers who are embedded in the company's in the customer's company to help integrate or implement your product or solutions. Why is that the case that we all started with self-serve products like API products, but then we still need for deploy engineers to like kind of bridge the gap between the product and the customer, especially in our industry?
Well, data is still very, very messy. Like in enterprise companies, they still have a lot of data and systems that they don't always know how to fit that in with the new technologies that are coming along. Like agents are really, really nascent technology, and you have like really big cloud provider companies like Microsoft or AWS that are starting to release their agent marketplaces and just like providing some more self-serve solutions for people, but it's still very, very new. And so you need someone who can help take the team just like go the last mile, right? And so, for example, they can try to implement the API on their own, but the FDE comes and builds a POC, right? They help accelerate how the team understands the value in their data. And so that engineering perspective is actually so important and even like making a sale because it can give the engineers this peace of mind that they don't have to later go on their own and try to understand how to deal with this, right? They have this technical trust that can help the team drive adoption, right? They will create a POC, they will sit hand in hand with the engineers, let them know how to work with their current systems, which often are hard to understand. And so even though we would love for it to be like a plug and play purchase, which I think our research agent will be more of that, in terms of like plugging in our search API, making sure the right parameters are being turned on, especially for your use case, is something that definitely needs engineering support. And so FDEs are just becoming a critical role, and I do see this across the industry.
From Tavily's perspective, because I know you guys were hiring for deploy engineers at one point. What do
Still,
you normally still? Yes,
we love
yeah,
forward deployed engineers.
yeah. If somebody's looking for a job, reach out to Sophia. But what are some of the qualities that you guys look for, or you look for when you're looking hiring a candidate for a forward deployed?
Yeah, so you need somebody who is a self-starter, somebody who has built agents, right? And so a lot of these people like Dean and Noah who are on our team, they are some of the best people at building agents in the industry at this moment. And that's just because they have sat there, worked with the technology, and helped co-design. Like a lot of the times that we've launched agents or tools on the different agentic marketplaces, it's been a lot of experimental work that has never been done before. And so you need somebody who really is a self-starter, super plugged into the tech ecosystem, following all the latest innovations, and really somebody who has gotten their hands dirty and is willing to build. Because I really think in building the POCs, you need somebody who has tested it out, knows where there are some mistakes, where the systems are failing, and just be willing and patient to work with the customer to implement into their own systems.
Yeah, and do they have to be like have a background in computer science, or can they be like somebody who's like an ex-founder who's like did sales before? Like, what's like the threshold? Like, do you want more customer talking facing, or do you want more engineering capabilities for these people?
Yeah, so I think it's a mix of both. Some of our forward deployed engineers, they are computer science majors. They're absolutely incredibly genius, and they are able to understand the tech because they have built the tech. Our forward deployed engineers were very, very involved in building our research agent, for example, along with our other engineering team. And so you need that, but also somebody that understands the customer lens, where they're coming from, what problem they're trying to solve. And so it's a mix of skill set that's actually really, really interesting because you're merging somebody with this passion for engineering and computer science, but also that emotional ability to talk to customers and guide them through a POC. And so it's a very special set of skills that is needed.
It's one thing that I noticed about you guys, and I think I noticed about Langchain as well, which is that you guys sponsor a lot of community events and you host events out of your office space. I know you guys moved to a new office space, I think a couple months ago. I haven't seen it yet. I only seen the old space, but you've been doing events there where you bring in like developers and then you give like fireside chats and stuff like that, and you sponsor a lot of community events like hackathons. So what's the driving reason behind this? Because I know some companies do it a lot and other companies don't do it, and when they try to do it, they don't understand like why they need to do it. So yeah, tell me.
Yeah, so I am a huge community proponent. Like my main job is in partnerships, but community is just something that I'm very, very passionate about. I feel like if you're building something in a vacuum, then you're building wrong, right? When Tavili started, Rotem literally had zero marketing spend. There was no marketing team. They were not making any ads. I'm pretty sure to this point we've launched maybe like one ad campaign. It's very, very limited. The main focus was on building a product that developers loved. Our PLG motion is really what brought Tavily to be very popular. Rotem partnered with Harrison early days in LangChain, and so they were building a product that was highly relevant and co-designed with other infrastructure that was in the business, right? And so LangGraph with Tavily is a collaboration that many people know. There's a lot of documents and workshops around it. A lot of this is community work, right? You show up to the hackathons, you try to understand the problems that somebody has in building with your tool, try to understand why would they rather use somebody else's tool rather than your own, and just meeting the builders that are using your tool is so, so important. I am usually the person that goes to the hackathons and meet the builders, and I love it. I think it's such a great opportunity to meet the people that are using our product, get real feedback, and just it's a great way of distribution, right? Builders are the main people who would be taking on Tavily, and even though um, maybe they're like a software engineer at a big Fortune 500 company, if they love this product, they'll show it to their team, they'll show it to their VP of engineering, and then this can turn into a, say, bigger enterprise deal. But really, our developers are what drew the adoption of Tavily, and so it's a really big part of who we are, of our identity, and something that we're always looking to continue to be involved with.
And obviously, it's been working out really well for you guys because like Tavili is a well-known name when you're building in that ecosystem for like not just like web search but also like building agents, especially if you're building with LangChain. I remember when Dean and Mike came to Ottawa to do our hackathon.
Yes.
Somebody ran into an issue there, and I remember Mike pulled out his laptop and started pushing to production right away to like fix that right away. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like you can get like you can look over the person's shoulder, see how they're using the product, and then like instantly make a quick product decision to like push some changes to product right away. So I thought that moment was pretty cool.
That's
Um,
amazing. Yeah, we're building for the developer, right? We love when we see people building open source projects. We see all of them, and we're trying to highlight more of that work because like the community really is what drives the adoption. And so we're always very grateful and excited to see the different projects that are being created by the community.
what are some other things that you guys have in the pipeline or big news that are coming up? Anything exciting in the near
Yeah,
horizon?
so something that I personally am very proud of is that Tavily is now available on 5 different marketplaces. And so you can actually use Tavily with Snowflake, Databricks, AWS, IBM, Microsoft. And so really my goal personally is wherever people are building agents, we want to be there. This ecosystem play is so important, and developers don't need to think about these integrations. They just need to think about building. And so I'm just excited about continuing to work with different people in the industry. I also met some of the GitHub guys in a GitHub social here in New York, and I heard that there's a big move towards making more events in New York, which also personally excited about based on the fact that I am here. I have been traveling to SF quite a bit to host some events, but I love the fact that tech is coming more to New York, and so we're going to see a lot more of that developer ecosystem. And I know AI Tinkers, for example, is in New York, and so we recently co-sponsored an event together and really starting to see developers show up. And so that's something that I'm excited to see play out in 2026.
And we found even in our city as well, like hosting these events give you so much advantage because then you get people to use it in front of you. You get your first pick on like who's a good developer because then everybody knows who you are.
For sure.
Um, and like it's just goodwill and it's fun. So before we wrap this up, I want to ask you about your background also,
Sure.
because how did you end up working where you are today, and what career choices did you make? Because a lot of people watching this are kind of looking for a way into the industry. So like, what are some choices you made that kind of brought you to where you are today? Working in this like really amazing space industry that we're in together. How did that happen, and what was your background before that?
Sure. So I was a normal student. I was studying at Columbia University and I was doing my economics degree. I was never very technical. I was very curious about entrepreneurship and latest technologies, but it wasn't something that I had a lot of experience in. I was doing a lot of community work on LinkedIn though. I would say LinkedIn has been a critical part of the success in my career. I actually got recruited by Microsoft when I was sophomore in college. They saw that I was doing some partnerships work as part of some like early stage startups as well as developing my own. And so in seeing this entrepreneurship and I guess like building in public, which I know is like a big Twitter term right now, they actually reached out to me over LinkedIn and offered me a job. It was a great experience while working at Microsoft. I think I got plugged into the latest innovation. The time when I was working at Microsoft was literally when the alliance with OpenAI happened. And so it was an insane time to be in the business. Microsoft was coming up with so much innovation. They were collaborating with OpenAI and it was just a huge buzz. And so I got to do a lot of strategy in like emerging tech areas like Web3, robotics, and then AI, of course. And then I was learning so much. I was meeting so many people that I felt like it was only fair in my eyes to share some of these resources with the people in my LinkedIn community. And so this is what I did. I realized that my community was kind of like my asset and something that I was very grateful for. So I always kept posting about how I learned about AI as a non-technical person, what are some of the tools that I use, some of the people that I follow, newspapers or newsletters that I read. And just by sharing resources, I think my audience got large to the point where like I started meeting more founders in the AI space, and one of them was Rotem. I went to his events in New York that he hosted, I think it was like a year and a half ago, and I thought the energy from this like very young team was contagious, and something that I was looking for at the time was a team, right? I was working remote. I was looking for a family to build from scratch with, and so I joined Tavily in May, and that's how I got here. But something that I noticed is always just like the value of community is huge. The value of building in public, showing your skills without necessarily being paid for it, and just being like an authentic community giver. Go to events, talk to people, be willing to give before you get anything. And I think this is what really has helped me just like really be open to new opportunities.
That sounds about right. Like you made it almost like it'll be impossible to not land an opportunity somewhere exciting because you've done all the work leading up to that point.
Exactly.
So
Just like make sure you show it because people are watching for sure.
yeah, and build in public.
Build in
Cool.
public.
Sophia, thank you so much for your time today. That's pretty much it. That's the pot for today. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, it was a pleasure.